To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nation and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Here.
Councilmember Puzio?
Here.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Here.
Councilmember Smith? Here. Councilmember Sackett?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Vice President Abrahamson? Here. President Jedenak?
Here.
This meeting was called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Notices of this meeting were sent to the official newspapers, the Daily Record and the Star Ledger, on September 24th, 2018. In addition, copies of notices were posted on the official bulletin board in the municipal building and filed in the office of the municipal clerk on the aforementioned date.
The next item on the agenda is the designation of the Sergeant at Arms. Township Code 2-5.15. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant of arms at the council meeting. The sergeant at arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. I see that the chief of police is not with us this evening. I see other officers in the room. Captain Ryerson, will you be serving as the Sergeant at Arms?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you. The accepted standard is that members of the audience are asked to keep their volume to an inaudible level so that business can be conducted and so that those who are speaking can be clearly heard. If an individual becomes audible, the Sergeant at Arms is expected to ask the individual to reduce their volume to an inaudible level or ask the individual to leave the meeting room as necessary. The next item on the agenda is council appointments. We have one for EMS, Mahir Kensagra. I will move the appointment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelly. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes, motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have a mayor's appointment, planning board member for a full term, Phyllis Hantman. Ms. Hantman is also a current member, alternate member of the zoning board, which she will continue to serve on as is allowed by our municipal land use code. Mr. Mayor, since this is your appointment, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yes, I would. Phyllis Hantman has served this town for many years as our planning board secretary, and believe me, she ran the whole show. She's a great talent. She has a wealth of experience, and I'm thankful that we have someone who has that level of experience that wants to continue to volunteer. She sets a great example for the rest of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move this.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kelly. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is ordinances to introduce. Ordinance 01818, an ordinance of the Township of Rockaway, Morris County, New Jersey, amending Township Code, Chapter 2, Section 2-6.3, Township Attorney. Before the council is an amended version of that ordinance. I got some feedback since it was posted for the public, as well as a few conversations that the mayor, Mayor Menena and I had regarding it. The copy that you have before you is highlighted in sections A and in section E. There is some confusion as to what the terms of the appointment would be for the township attorney and the conflicts counsel. In both cases, the term of appointment is 1 year and until an appointment and qualified successor is appointed. In addition to that, with regard to the ordinance, the ordinance mandates a conflicts counsel, which is a best practice that many other municipalities employ. It also clarifies the role of the township attorney in the assistance of the mayor, the council, as well as department heads. I will move this ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Abrahamson. Is there any discussion on this ordinance to be introduced? I see Mr. Puzio and then Mr. Sackett. Mr. Puzio.
I just made some notes. I have a couple concerns on the duties. If you're looking at B where it says duties, if you read it, I don't believe that the township attorney should advise in all legal matters. There are matters that are handled by the JIF that we've had in the past, and the JIF handles those matters, and the attorneys they assign are the matters in which the township may have a conflict of interest. We have a joint insurance fund, and sometimes there's conflicts, and the joint insurance fund will assign attorneys to handle some particular issues, and they've done that recently in the past. There may be other matters in which a town attorney should not be involved in where they don't have any expertise. B, I put down, the council has no control over the administration. It is the legislative branch of municipal government. It seems that this ordinance is kind of encroaching upon the mayor's right under our form of government. Our current ordinance allows the council or the mayor to assign specific cases. I don't think it's a good idea to allow any attorney, even one that is trusted by all of us, to have sole discretion to assign cases. That should be up to the governing body, whether it be the council or the mayor, to approve those. I just don't think it's a solid ordinance. I think it takes away from us as a council, as a mayor, having control over what we want to assign, who we want to assign it to. We're elected by people in the audience, people out in the public, and I think that you elect us to make decisions. I don't think that you're electing an attorney, whether it's a town attorney, whether it's a JIF attorney, to make those decisions. I think they need to go through us. So that's when I'll be voting no on this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Puzio. Mr. Puzio. Mr. Puzio, you referenced the Morris County JIF and that there are items that the JIF handles on our behalf. You're aware that the JIF is, our membership or use of the JIF is voluntary.
Correct.
What would happen if we didn't have the JIF, if we decided not to use the JIF?
But we do have the JIF
Okay,
right
but
now.
my question to you is, let's say a council in the future or mayor in the future decided we didn't want to be partnered with the JIF anymore. Given what you just described, you said that there are things that the JIF handles.
Correct.
How would this governing body handle that in the future?
Why would we not want to be part of the JIF?
The JIF is an insurance fund.
Okay,
The
why-
town can always change their insurance fund for cost reasons, for performance reasons.
Why would we not want to be part of the JIF? JIF has protected us in the past.
Okay.
For years.
Mr. Puzio, the question was very straightforward. In the situation that the JIF is not available, how would this operate?
The council or the mayor would appoint someone, would have discretion to appoint the attorneys that they want.
At that time.
Very simple.
So in the case of a conflict, that's not the case. And one of the things that this ordinance does is ensure that there's always a conflicts counsel in place. So if the township attorney cannot address something, the conflicts counsel can address that on behalf of the township. So, Mr. Sackett, you had some comments?
Yeah, just two things. I just wonder, who drew up this ordinance?
first question. And second question is, how can we vote on this? I just got this as I walked into the building. Okay, two things. One is I was wondering who drew this up. And second thing I was wondering, we were just handed this as I walked into the dais. I never saw this updated ordinance till I came in here. So I'm wondering, how can we vote on something we were just handed? I think the best bet would be to table this for another time, have time to look it over. So I want to make a motion to table this ordinance for next
Your
next
motion
meeting.
is not recognized.
Okay.
Continue.
Second.
It's not recognized. Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Puzio?
Answer it.
Do I have anything else?
No,
to add?
I'm sorry, Mr. Sackett, do you have anything else?
No, I'm just making my motion
Okay.
to table this.
Question, with regard to having just received this, I'll ask the clerk, when did the agenda go out to the council members?
On Monday,
Morning or afternoon?
before
Who wrote the
noon.
ordinance?
This
So,
was
so
changed.
Mr., I allowed you to speak without interrupting you, Mr. Sackett. I would appreciate the same in
You got
return.
it.
Mr. Sackett, you received a copy of the ordinance on Monday before noon. Today is Wednesday at 7:41 p.m. The only change that was made came as a result of feedback of other members of the public who had an opportunity to review the same thing you did on the web, as well as discussions I had with Mayor Menena. Before you is the amended ordinance, highlighted in the sections that are changed, right? I count 3 lines on page 1 and 5 lines on page 2 that were changed. I wouldn't call them such substantive changes that you don't have the ability to absorb those changes and understand what they are. I will also remind, excuse me. I will also remind you that this is an ordinance introduction. The way that ordinances work is that they are introduced, they are then noticed to the public. At a subsequent meeting, there's then a second reading of the ordinance, which includes a public input session just for that ordinance for adoption, and then a final vote. Following that, then the mayor has the ability to approve or veto the ordinance. I'll ask if there's any other comment, but before I do that, I'll ask if the mayor or the township attorney have any comments with regard to this ordinance.
Acting mayor. Who wrote it? Acting mayor.
Just with regard to the JIF, the way your contract and the way the JIF contracts provide is once a matter is handled by the JIF, at least for settlement purposes, the JIF has the ability, has the power to settle cases on behalf of the municipalities. That's generally the way they do it. Our role on cases that are handled by the JIF is really relegated to oversight. There may also be issues with regards to scope of coverage that come up with the JIF. So your township attorney's role with the JIF is really A, oversight of cases. B, there may be certain counts of certain complaints in which the JIF doesn't cover, in which it's necessary for your township attorney to be in the case with the JIF. That does happen on occasion. And third is there are issues of coverage that would arise. But once the JIF has a case on behalf of the township, just so you know, the JIF has the ability contractually usually to settle the case for the township. So I just wanted to expand a little bit upon the relationship between the municipality, the township attorney, and the JIF. We prepared the ordinance based upon input from administration, and I believe that it's an ordinance that is appropriate and is proper. And certainly, you know, on all decisions that are made, we would handle it by working in concert with the administration and then bringing any settlements, for example, on litigation to the council for ultimate approval.
Thank you.
Are there any council members who haven't yet spoken who would like to speak? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
No.
Councilmember Friedlander?
No.
Councilmember Puzio?
No.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Surprise.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedinak?
Yes, ordinance is introduced. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Consent agenda includes a number of resolutions. I'm going to be removing for further discussion following the consent agenda the following resolutions. Resolution R-18-165, 171, and 172. So the consent agenda to be acted on by the council immediately will be resolutions R-18-166, 169, 170, 173, 174, and that is all the resolutions on the consent agenda. I will move it and ask for a second.
Wait, can I ask a quick question?
We don't have a motion or a second. Typically, typically the consent agenda doesn't have discussion unless you're asking for an item to be removed from discussion, for discussion.
I may be, I just want to ask, is 165, you said that's included on there?
So, I'll repeat myself, Mr. Puzio, for your benefit.
Thank you very much.
The resolutions to be removed for further discussion following the consent agenda are resolutions R-18-165, 171, and 172. Are there any other resolutions any council members would like removed for separate discussion? Hearing none, the consent agenda will consist of resolutions R-18-166, 169, 170, 173, and 174. Again, I will move it and ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Abrahamson. Clerk, please call the roll.
Any discussion?
As I explained just a moment ago, Mr. Sackett, the consent agenda typically doesn't have discussion, and if discussion is requested, then the item to be discussed is asked by the council member to be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion. I then asked if there are any further items to remove for further discussion, to which no one responded. Do you have an item to be removed, Mr. Sackett?
None removed. Thank you.
Okay. Is that explanation sufficient?
I got it. Thank you very much for explaining.
Thank you, Mr. Sackett, for understanding. We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes. Motion carries. The consent agenda is passed. The three resolutions we will go over in order one at a time are resolutions R-18-165, followed by 171, followed by 172. With regard to Resolution 165, this is a resolution authorizing the execution of a developer's agreement by and between the Township of Rockaway and BC Rockaway LLC. I'll be deferring this to the next meeting, but before we do that, I just wanted to discuss this briefly with Mayor Menena and our municipal engineer, Allison Ferrante, who's here with us. My understanding is that with regard to this resolution, before the governing body can act upon it, that there is still some items that need to be completed by the developer. So I don't know if Ms. Ferrante, if you'd like to comment.
Yeah. You know what, let me just say this. I looked at the developer's agreement. I spoke with Ms. Ferrante, and I'm going to let her talk to the specific details. But I firmly believe that past practice is something that we should maintain. It's a good policy in law, no matter what type of law that you're talking about. And I think we don't want to open up a rabbit hole to fall into if we start to provide a permit for something that's not complete. Okay? I'll let her speak to the details, but I think that that's a good policy to maintain. Thank you, Mr. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Ferrante?
It's interim, but that's okay.
I'll remind the members of the audience with regard to the decorum that I read earlier. Also remind the Sergeant at Arms, if you see individuals yelling out, to please go over and ask them to cease that behavior, and if necessary, to remove them from the room. Consider yourself warned once if you've yelled out already. Ms. Ferrante, you have the floor.
Hello. Hello.
Actually, if I may, because this is Ms. Ferrante's first meeting as the municipal engineer, just a little bit of background on Ms. Ferrante. Ms. Ferrante's professional experience includes using principles of civil engineering to plan, design, and manage development projects that are consistent with local ordinances, board approvals, and state regulations. Her past position as a manager of land development sector at a private consulting firm and her previous responsibilities as principal engineer at Rockaway Township have provided her with the technical and management experience required to lead our Department of Engineering, Planning, and Construction here at Rockaway Township. She is a graduate of Colgate University as well as NJIT. I'll list off some of her professional registration, certifications, and training. She's a professional engineer with the state of New Jersey, a certified municipal engineer, Rutgers CAIT design of ADA curb ramps and pedestrian access routes, Rutgers CAT common sense solutions to intersection problems, NJDEP stormwater management design review course. OSHA has HAZWOPER trained, OSHA construction safety trained, AHIRA asbestos building inspector certified, NJDEP regulatory training for underground storage tanks, as well as technical requirements of site remediation basics training and assessment of vapor intrusion technical and professional training. So with that background, Ms. Ferrante, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President, for that introduction. Again, I'm Allison Ferrante. I'm a municipal engineer.
Push the...
Can you hear me now? Oh, there you go. Thank you for that introduction, Council President. And again, my name is Allison Ferrante. I am your municipal engineer. Let's talk about the resolution that we will move to the next meeting. That is Miller's Ale House that received planning board approval in July of this year. As part of that planning board resolution of approval, the developer is to enter into a developer's agreement with the township. We have been working with the developer's attorney and the engineer to finalize that developer's agreement. It appears as though that developer's agreement will be ready to present to council at the October 11th meeting.
Okay. Thank you. So we will defer this action on this resolution until the next meeting. Resolution R18-171 is up next for discussion. Mr. Kelly, I believe that you had requested that this be separated for discussion.
I do. Thank you very much. I have one quick, or a couple of questions in regards to the replacement for the boat. And this is for the White Meadow Lake Fire Department. And Mr. Shear, we kind of touched a little bit about it at our meeting that we had yesterday morning with regard to a particular vehicle, truck 636, and we got into the conversation about this boat. And the one question I have is that the boat itself, we weren't positive who was the donator of that boat for White Meadow Lake Fire Company. Do we have confirmation who had actually donated that?
Actually, you're talking about the wrong fire company. It's Marcella Fire Company, not White Meadow Lake. And I believe in our conversation, and I reconfirm this, it was donated to us by the Green Pond Fire Department. I do not know when, though.
Okay.
It was many, many years ago.
And with regard to that, the boat itself is a functioning boat, but there's going to be a potentiality that we're going to auction off this boat. Is that correct?
Yes, as we discussed yesterday.
And with regard to that, since Green Pond was the donator of that, and Green Pond currently now is trying to get as much money in donations to buy a tanker, would it be possible that if we did have a sale of that boat, that any of the proceeds that we received from an auction, whether it's an online auction or an in-house auction in Rockaway Township, if we can then give the proceeds to Green Pond, since it's really technically not our boat other than what they had donated, I would just think that we could give that money back to further assist them in their quest in purchasing a tanker to replace the one that they have right now that's borderline inoperable.
That's technically a legal question and a finance question that I can't answer. I really don't know.
We don't have the ability to just donate funds without a legal appropriation to do so.
What you could do is donate, you can pass a resolution to donate the boat to them, and then they can sell it. And then it's there. Right now it's technically ours,
Okay.
And the only way you could do it is pass a resolution to donate the boat to them. Council, I think that we can do that. I will check with that.
Yeah, if we can find that out,
We'll look
getting
into
into
that.
the next meeting to do that. I don't know if it's really time sensitive now because we're coming into the fall, and then it's going to be winter where the need of a boat right now isn't going to be something dire at that time. But if there's a way to somehow give back to Green Pond, which they have given to Marcella or Rockaway Township as a whole, I would be very interested if we can do that.
I'll look into that.
Right, thank you. That's the only question I have.
Is there any further discussion with regard to Resolution R18-171? Hearing none, I will move it.
Second.
Moved by Jednak, second by Abrahamson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jednak?
Yes, motion carries. The next resolution is R18-172, resolution authorizing the purchase of a vehicle described as a 2018 Western Star truck with Class 8 chassis, having a gross vehicle weight of 27,000 pounds or greater, and being comprised of a dump body, plow, and sander, and the purchase of a warranty for such a vehicle for the total purchase price of $175,828.48. Mr. Kelly, I believe this was a resolution you asked to be removed.
I did, Council President. And if I may?
Please, Mr. Kelly.
I do have a couple of questions on this. This was something that was brought kind of to the last minute to the council and as well as the Vehicle Review Committee. And through Mayor Manena, he had reached out to me being the chairman of the Vehicle Committee, and then we had reached out to our other committee members, Mr. Palumbo and Mr. Sackett, with regard to this potential purchase. And meeting with Mr. Sheard and our mayor early morning on Monday, after finding out on Sunday about this, we had some discussions concerning the intent of the purchase, the intent of the replacement of the vehicle that the new vehicle is going to replace, and some of the concerns that Mr. Sheard had addressed to me with regard to the vehicle, and then agreed to having an inspection the following day on Monday morning, early on Tuesday. And we had a great meeting going through the vehicle, road testing the vehicle, and coming up with some conclusions with that. So first and foremost, I wanted to say thank you, Mr. Sheard, for giving me that opportunity and time to meet with you and Mr. Knopf and going through it. In addition to going through all of the records in the file for the history of what you were able to come up with. And you have a new system now that kind of started in late 15, early 16. So you were limited on how far we could go back from some of the stuff that was on your computer for those work orders that were there. But the vehicle in question that we have is 636. That's an 01 8500 that's there, and it's got a Cat 3126 in it, where it's only got 38,000 miles on it. And based on what we reviewed, and there were some concerns that you said about electrical and rust, and a particular body, you wanted to take the body off, potentially use that on something else in the future if it was to arise, because that's a replaced body on that particular truck itself. But upon the inspection of that, the truck wasn't extremely rotted out as it was. It probably ran as it's always run, and it ran unbelievable in a test ride that I went with it. Brakes, steering, all that was in great shape. Lift cylinder was recently replaced not that long ago. There were brakes and general maintenance that were there. And we also went through to see if there was any major mechanics that were of an issue at any time, whether it was the engine, transmission, drivetrain, differential, so forth and so on. We couldn't find anything other than just that electric shift controller that was replaced under warranty back in '02, so it was only a year out when the truck was purchased. So that in its own self was, I didn't understand the reasoning for replacing it. However, seeing the fleet that you have, I do believe that you are in need of a new vehicle, but not as a replacement, just as an addition. So based on the vehicle itself and the condition that it's in, and even with Mr. Knopf when we went on the ride, it's a really great backup vehicle. I know that there was one issue of rot that's starting in the one left side, driver's side rocker panel, but the floors were solid, firewall, some miscellaneous incidental things that need to be repaired or touched up. The hood hinge, because we couldn't open the hood, but that's fiberglass, so that's not rotted out, and everything else was in pretty good shape with that. I would highly recommend that we do not decommission this vehicle by taking off the body and then just auctioning off the cabin chassis. So if that's something that you can potentially look into and do that, because even searching for the sales of that vehicle, they were ranging anywhere from $14,000 with over 120,000 miles on them to almost $37,000 for ones that had 60 to 65,000 for what I can find. And that's even going into other dealers that are local giving me a valuation of a price on that. So going to an auction, we're not going to get very much money for it, but I think we can continue to use that as that backup or side road with the plowing, the salt that's on there, and the body that it's utilized for. And the recent repairs that you did to it, with brakes and oil changes and everything else, I think it's going to have some more longevity for some time. So if we can kind of agree to do that moving forward, that would be great. So again, not to remove it from our current fleet and have the other new truck as a replacement. I'd rather have the truck as considered an addition. With that being said, on the resolution that we have, I had one other question on the resolution, because you have here that's stated of all the different costs that are factoring in for the purchase of the cabin chassis, as well as the salter, the plow, and the body itself from Sanchez. But the one thing I didn't see any information about is the actual warranty that you have here that's for $9,389. And I don't have any of the specs in the warranty that are going to protect us with the purchase of this vehicle in the event that something happens. So I don't know if you have the ability to relay any of that information concerning the warranty and what it covers and what it doesn't cover.
I'm just looking through the backup documentation. Mr. Scheer, do you have a copy of the warranty in front of you?
Bear with me 1 minute here. I'm going through what was submitted to the council. But anyhow, I do have a copy of the letter that was addressed to my superintendent from Hoover Truck. The warranties are not covered under the co-op. That's why they were actually listed separately in the resolution. It's all warranties are 5 years and 100,000 miles. My options are the engine, the transmission, truck package number 4, quote and description attached, which I do not have the attachment right here. Towing is included, the axles, the undercoat, and the total options were $9,389 overall. That and the options I believe you do have. They're in the packet.
That I have. I do have the options.
But you just didn't have this cover letter.
I did not.
Okay, but that's that. And if I may, Council President, you know, it was a great meeting we had. I did see your recommendation to keep it as a backup reserve. In addition to the preliminary inspections and analysis you did of our vehicles when we discussed back in May. I do appreciate that fact, and we'll definitely, you know, see what we can do to get the truck fixed up and keep it as a reserve. But, you know, I also appreciate the fact you do wish to move on with adding a vehicle to the fleets.
And one follow-up question with that is that, as we discussed about certain software and equipment that our mechanics don't have,
yes,
their actual data that's going to be provided with this particular vehicle, because everything can be cumbersome to bring all the way to the dealer or having a service call where we can do it somewhat in-house. Is there going to be any upgrades to any of the computer systems and components that we would need tool-wise?
As we talked the other day with Al, we are going to look into it. As you put it, you know, the needs and wants, that's definitely a need. And we're going to see what we can do towards the end of this year, if we can do it. And if not, we will definitely have it in the budget for next year.
Do updates come with this purchase?
That I'd have to follow up for.
Okay.
Okay, because the updates you're talking about is if there's any computer updates, but that goes with the software of the diagnostic computer that we'd buy to be able to diagnose this truck.
Correct. I didn't know if they had anything that they gave with the vehicle.
No, no, they don't give us that. That, as we discussed, that's talking like a $13,000 to $15,000 item.
Yeah, the Zeus that we were talking about.
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
All right, and I'd like to thank the council for supporting the fire department and improving the boat and the SCBA. The firefighters greatly appreciate it.
Are there any other questions or comments with regard to Resolution R18-172, the dump truck? Hearing none, I will move this. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Friedlander. Did I hear that correctly? Okay. Motion by Jednak, second by Friedlander. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzo?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jednak?
Yes, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is council reports. We will start with Councilmember Quinn.
Yes, because tonight's meeting took place, Councilman Puzo and I couldn't go to the Board of Ed meeting, which is tonight. Also, the Recreation Committee will be meeting in October, and I can't believe October is right around the corner. It's crazy. And as I sit here still and look over the administration, I still cannot believe that Mayor Mike is gone, and it's still hard to fathom. So, other than that, that's it for me.
Councilmember Quinn, what day in October is the Rec Committee meeting?
That, I believe, is October 2nd.
October 2nd, thank you. Next is Councilmember Friedlander.
No reports tonight.
Next is Councilmember Puzo.
I want to give the floor for a second to Joy Weinreich. She wants to mention an event that we're going to have.
Okay, Councilmember Puzo, that isn't how we typically do things, but
Okay, I'll mention it for her.
if you would, Ms. Weinreich, feel free to come up to the microphone.
Just FYI, with a little help from Mike Puzo, the Civic Affairs Committee of White Meadow Lake is holding a Stop the Bleed seminar on Thursday, October 25th at 7 p.m. at the White Meadow Lake Clubhouse. So everyone, please put it on your calendar. Call the clubhouse at 627-5300 to register so we know how many staff we need. I attended the seminar at Copeland and found it to be very interesting and informative. So please try to join us. See you there. Thanks.
Ms. Weinreich, can you repeat the date and time?
October 25th, 7 o'clock at White Meadow Lake Clubhouse.
Thank you.
It's very important that you register so that Dr. Rosenberg brings enough personnel. Because what he does is he sets up stations, and if there's only 20 people, we might need 2, maybe 3 stations. He brings physicians in that are trauma surgeons, medical students from New York, so they're traveling a fair distance to get here. So we want to make sure that we make it worth their while, and we don't have 15 or 20 people, and we have an overload of doctors here. So it's very, very important that if you're going to attend, that you're going to register. Thank you. It's free. Yeah, it takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Thank you, Councilmember Puzo. Councilmember Palumbo.
Yeah, 2 things. I just want to thank Bill Costa from zoning and also Amanda and Tracy from administration. They helped resolve an issue we had on Struble Lane. There was an overgrowth of landscape, and they came in and resolved the issue for us. There was some complaints from at least one neighbor. Also, in the Birchwood section, we've been having an issue with people's cars being rummaged through at night. I know it's happened on Taylor, I know it's happened on Oak, it's happened on other streets, where it seems that the overnight doors are unlocked in cars, and people are rummaging through these cars, looking for whatever they can take. So reached out for Mayor Manena, and we spoke to Captain Ryerson, and You want to add on to that? Captain Myerson, you can do?
I've asked the police department to step up patrols, in that area. Obviously, we've got a lot of transients going through there, and they're shopping. It's up to us to lock our vehicles. The days of leaving things unlocked and unguarded are gone. We've left that age, that golden age that we all grew up in. Particularly those of you that have cars with the fobs where you don't need a key anymore. If you leave that in your car, you just gave permission to somebody to drive your car away, and that's happening, and it's happening all over. So please be vigilant. Don't make it easy for somebody to break into your car and steal your computer or your cell phone or, God forbid, your wallet. Lock your cars. Thank you. And thanks to the police department for stepping up those patrols. Appreciate it, guys.
Mayor Mineta, on that topic, I know there have been requests previously for the township to have a police blotter. One thing that I didn't know until I became acting mayor, and as interim mayor, I'm sure you're aware that the police department does assemble on a weekly basis a list of activity that's taken place throughout the township. I think that list could be reviewed and elements of that edited down to serve as a police blotter. And I think that would serve a need that the public has asked for quite some time. So I would ask you to consider that possibility.
I'll do that, and I'll speak with the chief as soon as he gets back from the FBI training that he's at this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Smith is next.
Yes. I'm glad you're here tonight, Bob. I just wanted to thank administration and the Department of Public Works for having this section of Richard Mine Road between Mount Hope Road and Mount Hope Avenue paved. It makes a big difference. Very nice. And the residents are quite pleased. I attended the planning board meeting on September 17th. It was a very short meeting because there was no public hearing. And I just wanted to let you know the next planning board meeting is Monday, October 15th. Thank you. Thank you.
Next is Councilmember Sackett.
This Friday is the Rockaway Area Chamber of Commerce meeting, 9 a.m. at the Atlantic Health Building, 3rd floor. And I just asked that Council President, going forward, any type of holidays, Jewish holidays, I'd ask you to speak with me in advance. I was very unhappy that you tried to plan a meeting on Yom Kippur. You never issued an apology to me. I know we went over the calendar in the beginning of the year, but when you tried to plan it, it was very disrespectful, and you still have not apologized.
Anything further, Councilmember Sackett?
That's it, thank you.
So, Councilmember Sackett, I believe you didn't attend the last meeting that we had, but I did issue an apology at the very beginning of that meeting. That was on video, on audio, everyone heard it. If you didn't hear it because you didn't see the video or hear the audio, my apologies for my error in scheduling the meeting for last week. With regard to tonight's meeting, which is a day after our regularly scheduled meeting, which would have been yesterday, I appreciate you acknowledging that back in December, I coordinated with you the entire meeting schedule for the entire year, all regular meetings, with the goal of avoiding colliding with religious holidays. Somehow we still ended up with one on the second night of Sukkot yesterday. So
I appreciate the apology.
So somehow we still ended up with an error yesterday. And as I mentioned at last week's meeting, I've spoken to Rabbi Popke, Rabbi Baumgarten, and Rabbi Rudin, and I appreciated their offer to me with regard to scheduling and assistance with that as well. So we do our best to make sure that doesn't happen. Sometimes even when you and I tried for yesterday, we still ended up having that error. But we will certainly try to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you, Council President. I have a couple of things, so just bear with me. I'll try to make them quick. Real simple. I just wanted to reach out to all the employees in the water department, Gene Garabrandt, water main break over on Omaha, that those guys went to, and they did that. immediately. I believe that was on Monday morning. I had seen them on our way to the meeting to meet with you, Mr. Sheard. So I know they handled it very quickly and resolved it, so I just want to say special thanks to them. Also want to thank Mayor Menena and Mr. Sheard as well for entertaining that meeting for the vehicle that we were in discussion before that we approved. And I have two things. Hopefully I can make them somewhat short. The recycling yard. When I was a member of the public prior to taking over office, I had made a question and inquiry because we were having some issues with our mulching companies that we've used. And I know that Mrs. Seeger was very frustrated with the last one that we had from a lot of issues that were taking place and how long it took to actually happen from this individual. But I did mention that if there's another alternative, we have the yard that is constantly filling up, and it is extremely filled at the moment, and we got hurricane season coming through and potentiality of leaves and branches and everything else that's going to happen and running out of space. I've proposed an idea, perhaps if we were to use a 30 or 40 yard dumpster that we currently have. We now have an excavator that has a thumb that we can load. And if we were to load some of that material of that size, either a 30 or 40, and bring it over to the county to get rid of it, maybe once or twice a month, eventually we can get caught up without spending the $9,000, the $4,500 a day for that mulch operation, just to leave mulch everywhere that ends up being really contaminated mulch to begin with. So it's just an idea. If we can see what it would cost, what it could potentially save us with that. Again, only seeing that was taking place now in the recycling, and I use the recycling area, but it's just getting so congested, and even the last firm that used it, they didn't clear the entire area there because of their issues that they had. So that's something we can look into moving forward. It may not even be an idea that could work, but if there's a way of removing the items without too much cost and saving money, that would be great.
We'll look into it.
Thank you. Last, there was something that I've been looking at as well from when we were going through the budget and noticing debt that we had and doing a little bit more research on that. I was reviewing Ordinance 93-5. Now, it's a very old ordinance from 1993 that maybe many of the public don't even know, but it deals with a sewer line that was installed by the township over in Bobbyville by the Armory, Dover High School, Route 15 area. And back in 93, we had an assessed value of what the cost was for that line. And originally they had down here on Part B, the estimated maximum amount of that assessment of that ordinance 93-5 was $1,307,000. And talking to our auditor, Mr. Serenelli, on several occasions, even up to today, the actual amount is $1,375,000. We haven't collected this money, and it's on the users in that area. At the time, it was 66 properties, and since then, there's been a few subdivisions that could potentially add an additional 4 to 6 properties for that. But the assessment on a town-installed line, it's the individuals that are a recipient of that line that pay the cost of it, so it's no cost to the other taxpayers that are going to benefit from this. So confirming with our auditor, the amount of money right now, because it's been bonded, and there's already been $620,000 paid towards this bond, but it's coming from everybody in the town through the general fund of our budget in 2017, being the last. So these are people that don't even rely on sewer. These are septic and well people in the northern end of Rockaway Township, because we haven't put an assessment together to finalize this. So we have another $755,000 to go. $755,000 to go. And I am aware that the Armory has already paid their share of $288,000 towards this back in the early stages of 93. But again, we need to actually have the individuals that are the beneficiaries of this. This is what increases the value of their home. There's been a cost analysis. There's been a percentage of what their increase was and what it would apply to each individual property owner. And it averages between, I don't know, Jack, what, $10,000 to $15,000?
cap, that 13.
There's no cap. It would be against Title 40 for a cap. But well, you have a letter that you haven't paid for that amount.
Hey, I've asked for it many
So for some
times.
reason, this has stalled in the hands of our prior administrations, and I'm just trying to figure out how can we revitalize this to have the actual users to pay that debt rather than the taxpayers of Rockaway Township.
So Councilmember Kelly, just so that I can understand, because there are a bunch of numbers that were thrown out, the total cost of the debt is around $1,375,000.
That's correct.
And
Mrs. Palmieri, can you
if
confirm
I,
that? Mrs. Palmieri, can you confirm that?
I can't confirm it sitting here, but I can confirm it for the future.
okay, Councilmember Kelly, just so I can understand this, $1,375,000 that was spent for this project for connecting homes to sewers. Correct. The cost for that is supposed to be recouped by the homeowners directly. Is that
who are recipients of that?
Who are connecting their homes to the sewers?
That's
Is
correct.
that correct?
That is.
As of today, your understanding is that the township has paid $625,000 towards that bond, but that funding has come from, I think you said something like $200,000 from the
Armory.
288,000 from the Armory. The rest of that money has come out of the general fund.
Correct.
Is your understanding?
That's what Mr. Serenelli told me.
And there's still $755,000 to be paid. So we're looking at a little over $1 million that's been paid by, either is unpaid yet or has been paid by the regular taxpayer in Rockaway rather than the homeowners who benefited from those connections.
That's correct.
That's your understanding? Okay.
And if I may add, just real quick, I did reach out to Mr. Sheard to assist with some of the connections that were there, because some of the property owners in that area had indicated they had actually attached themselves and connected to a Dover line. So going to Dover and talking with their officials and using our municipal code at 1435, they do a billing check on there. And the only address that was connected to a Dover line was 204 Mount Hope Ave. There was none of these in this location, whether it be Hillside, Jefferson, North Street. None of these were anybody that was connected on that. Or they may have been connected without the knowledge of either Dover or Rockaway. So I know Mr. Shear was assisting me with that, looking into those matters that we had addressed a little over a week and a half ago. But we did get confirmation from Dover officials as well, and that information was passed over to our tax assessor that's been handling this too.
I saw there was a bit of a conference there with Mr. Sheard and the acting business administrator. Do you have any comments on, is there any background that you might have on this matter?
It is, the assessor's working on it.
Can you speak into the microphone and just pull it
The
closer?
assessor and the attorney are working on it, and they haven't come up with a conclusion yet, so I will check up on it.
Which attorney?
I think Mr. Buzak?
Okay. And how long have they been working on this?
Since it was brought up. I have to follow up on it.
Okay. It does sound like a lot of money to be out there unpaid since 1993. My understanding is that typically the property owners have some, perhaps lien is not the right word, but there's an additional assessment on top of their property that's done for the cost of the connection.
Yes, there's an analysis they have with the ratio they apply to come up with the overall amount that they would pay for being connected to that, in addition to whatever fees that it costed to connect to it as well. But none of that other than the Armory has paid towards that. I know a resident has been willing to give any money towards it from the original estimate cost of what was there. But mind you that it goes usually for a 20-year span, and then the first year was interest-free, and then after that it would be whatever the interest is following that over that 20-year period. So there's an incentive to pay it all off in one lump sum, or if you don't have that money, you can also pay for it. But I don't think it's fair for the other taxpayers that are paying towards this bond that have no use for that line, and especially the people on the northern end of it in 6 and some areas of Ward 5, they're relying on septic and well, and they would have no utilage for sewer. So just
Well, certainly the town doesn't pay for the septic and wells for those who live in wards 5 and 6, right? It sounds like there's certainly some further investigation that needs to be done here by the administration. It sounds like the mayor is interested in the answer to this question as well.
do we know why it's actually stalled? So, I mean, it's 25 years.
I was just going to say, so you said 20 years, Mr. Kelly, if you could direct the questions over here. My understanding from what you said is that typically it's a 20-year lifespan to pay these things off. 20 years was 5 years ago. So your question, I guess, to the administration is, are we aware of any particular reason why this might have been stalled?
No,
Okay.
I am not.
So we will then wait to hear back from the administration and what
Certainly will get a report.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Next is Council Vice President Abrahamson.
I too just want to thank Bob Sheard and his department. I know the downpours yesterday kept you guys on your toes, and all the popped up drainage catch basins we discussed this morning. And I also want to thank you for sending the crew over to Elm Street today. And perhaps the engineer, Allison, and yourself can take a look and see what we can do for the people over on Elm Street in the future, and see if we can correct something there. I do appreciate it, your quick response, and Mr. Noth and the rest of your crew down McKeel Drive. I understand my neighbor had a problem with the brook overflowing also, and I saw the crews out there today, so thank you very much. Yes, I appreciate it.
Thank you. I wanted to thank our health officer, Peter Tabbitt, for following up on a mosquito inquiry from the football program about a week or so ago. And also thank you to Mr. Sheard and Mayor Menena for meeting with Councilmember Kelly with regard to his vehicle questions. And I'm glad that we were able to get the information we needed so that we could proceed on those items this evening. Next on the agenda is open to the public.
Mr. Council President.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I skipped over the mayor. Mayor Menena.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I'd like to announce publicly that the water restrictions have been lifted. It's kind of funny that we'd be talking about water restrictions with all the rain we've been having, but there's a reason behind it. We had equipment failures in the water department, and we had to wait for pumps to be rebuilt. And to keep everybody's water flowing every time you turn on the faucet, Bobby Sheard and crew made sure that we kept the water restrictions on, which prevented a lot of water from being used and putting a tremendous amount of strain on equipment that was working on overtime to begin with. So once again, everything's back up and running, and yesterday, Mr. Sheard let us know that everything's good. I want to just very briefly say that the procedure that was followed to put me in as the interim mayor, I really want to stop a lot of the chatter that's out there that's not correct. And in the interest of doing that quickly, the county committee selects 3 names to submit to the council in the order of which they get the highest votes to the lowest votes. And what happened was my name was first because I was fortunate enough to get the highest vote count. The council then can vote on any one of the 3 people, but they have to vote in the order in which they're given the names. So since my name was first, I received the 5 votes, and I sit here as your interim mayor. Had I not received the 5 votes, it would went to the next person and perhaps to the next person. And if the council chose neither of the 3, then it would have reverted back to the county committee. Okay? And that's the process, and I don't think a lot of people know that. The second thing is, the ordinance that we're introducing tonight has another reading. We're looking at the verbiage very carefully, and I think you're going to see a little minor tweaks here and there. But I just wanted to bring that out. Nobody's going to vote on the ordinance tonight. There is no need for me to have 400 people send me a note about, don't vote yes. I can't vote yes on something that I can't vote on yet, okay? In the event there was an overflow crowd today, you hear the weather. The prediction was perfectly spot on. I had asked Doug Abbey to again put out his TV outside, and with the weather prediction and the wind prediction and the lightning prediction, we canceled that. We made arrangements for people, if there was an overflow, to leave their name and a cell phone number at the door. We were going to call people to come in for the public portion of the event so that no one would be refused the opportunity to speak. And I want that clearly understood. We want to make sure that everybody who wants to speak has an opportunity to do so. I'm going to defer to my business administrator, Pat Seeger, because she has a report on the health flu clinics that are coming up, and I think you want to have to hear this because it's important. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Seeger.
I just want to announce everybody can sign up for the flu clinics. You have to pre-sign up. They're October 4th, 1 to 3, October 11th, 4 to 6, October 18th, 4:30 to 6:30. Also, we'd like to invite everybody for the Fall Parks Lake cleanup. It's 9 to 11 on October 27th, and the same day is the Trunk or Treat Halloween from 3 to 5. So I hope you all can help out and attend. Thank you.
Thank you again. Next on the agenda is open to the public. Ordinance 2-5.14 requires that any comments or questions made during the public portion of a council meeting must be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual council member. The failure to comply with this ordinance may result in the termination of any further opportunity to address the council at that session. All speakers must first be recognized by the council president before speaking. All comments are to be directed to the entire council as a whole and not to any individual members. Speakers have 5 minutes each to speak per Township Code 2-5.14. At the conclusion of 5 minutes, an alarm will sound indicating that the speaker's time has expired, and the individual speaking is expected to immediately relinquish the microphone so that the next individual may speak. Failure to adhere to these rules will result in the council president using the gavel to reinforce adherence to these rules, and when an individual's speaking time has expired. If at any time a speaker ignores the gavel or refuses to relinquish the microphone, the sergeant at arms is directed to assist the individual in relinquishing the microphone and remove the individual from the meeting as necessary. First on the list is Rebecca Wickens. Please state your name and address for the record.
Rebecca Wickens, 3 Darlington Drive. I have a timer. Today's meeting was listed as a special meeting, although it's apparently a rescheduled meeting because no one looked at the calendar. Everything that's been done in the last 30 to 40 days has been thrown together without thought or consideration, but seeming to cause the most amount of confusion possible. We have an acting town clerk, uncertified and woefully unqualified, to whom we're paying $70,000 a year. The benefit to the council of having an unqualified clerk is she does everything she's told to do by the council president. Her mistake is not necessarily hers, but yours, which shows us you are also completely unqualified for your job. Here are a few definitions of words I have tonight. Retaliation, the action of harming someone because they've harmed you either actually or by perceived. Reprisal, the act of retaliation. Retribution, punishment inflicted on someone for a wrongdoing or criminal act. Threat, a statement of an intention to inflict pain, injury, damage, hostile action on someone in retribution for something done or not done. Disenfranchised, people deprived of the rights and privileges of a free inhabitant of a town, city, or country. Megalomania, people with this mental disorder have delusional fantasies that they are more important or powerful than they are, and they have an inflated self-esteem and overestimate their powers and beliefs. These are out of the dictionary. Many of us collecting signatures for the legal recall hear stories that are appalling. People will not speak up, sign petitions, not because they support you, but because of a far more insidious reason, fear. People fear retaliation if they speak out. Many residents talk about being threatened. They're afraid of the consequences because they or their family members have businesses in this town, or they work for the town and are afraid of losing their jobs. Many reports have found to be true. Bullying, assaults, threats, lies. But because of these actions, residents are being disenfranchised through the fear of reprisals from our elected officials. We have council members who send out emails that are full of lies, half-truths, and slander. Articles appear in newspapers that are accusatory and inflammatory, implying that the residents hampering the ability to conduct business were disruptors and engaged in lewd behavior. And just to clarify the definition of lewd, it's behavior that is crude and offensive in a sexual way. I cannot imagine that any resident has ever acted in a sexual way towards this council. You appointed a mayor who is either for this town or with you. If he is his own man and not in league with whoever, then he should hold the status quo and stop the hemorrhagic flow of cash into John Inglesio's pocket. Veto items that are detrimental to the town and stand on his own 2 feet. But he seems to be showing his true colors and is letting the residents know just whose pockets he lives in. Earlier this year, we lost a great senator, John McCain, who had the courage to stand up for what he believed in, despite backlash from his own party, despite being ridiculed by the president, despite death threats, despite failing health. He stood up for what he believed was the right thing to do. One of you must have the courage to do the same. You have to believe that the way this town is being ruled is apparently wrong on so many levels. One of you must have the decency to listen to the people and do what's right. Or are you living in fear of reprisals, or does someone have something on you? The time to make the right choice is closing, and you will reap the consequences of your actions. Do not think for 1 minute that you will be elected for another term, if you even last that long. It is without a doubt that more recalls are coming, and your threatening and bullying behavior will not be tolerated. We will band together and protect one another from retaliation in order to get you removed from office and prevent more damage to this town. 5 of you sit up on that dais and look down on us, literally and figuratively. We are not your subjects or your inferiors. We are equals. And just because you suffer from political megalomania, which makes you believe that a council seat or a title of mayor gives you absolute authority to do what you want, you are mistaken. Your arrogance will be your downfall. We will stay strong and recall on.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Dave Press. Please state your name and address for the record.
Dave Press, 71 Oakland Avenue. Your actions over the past 9 months will cause our properties to be devalued, our taxes will go up, and services will go down. That resolution that you just introduced, why don't you call it what it is? The blank check given to John Inglesino. Why didn't you want attorney review before and now you do? Because you didn't want to pay attorney John Yachafano for it, and because you wanted to have an unlimited source of income for that man over there. Unlimited in your mind, certainly not ours. If you like Inglesino that much and want him to have the job, if you have illegally given him, why don't you take the money to pay him out of your 5? No, make that 6 pockets. Yes, Paul, you're the 6th person screwing us. By the way, this is open to the public portion of our meeting. An increasing number of residents of your neighbors get up here and ask questions. We ask questions, but since we either get poor answers or no answers at all, you might as well change the name from open to the public to rhetorical questions, or ask your questions and have them fall on deaf ears. For a recall update. The recall movement is alive and growing. You obviously know this since signs have disappeared and people have been harassed. There wouldn't be anyone on the council who's known for that, would there? Says, no matter how many times I've reviewed the Rockaway Township budget, there's always one thing that seems to be missing. I don't see a line item for the large quantity of string that controls the puppets.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Doug Romaine. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Doug Romaine, 201 Mount Pleasant Avenue, Rockaway, New Jersey. I just have a couple things to talk to you about, one of which is Councilman Kelly was talking about the recycling center. I'd like you people to consider opening that recycling center to the public on Sundays for half a day. When we're talking about discrimination, there's people who simply don't have time to go to the recycling center on Saturday. Also, in the resolution that you have introduced, I would like to know how that compares to the contract that you signed with Mr. Inglesino. It seems to me that they conflict with one another. Which one are we going to live with? Well, also, I'd like you to know that you have been consistently holding special meetings and not adhering to the law as it relates to special meetings. I guess you know that, but please stop it. This is a regular meeting tonight. This is not a special meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Just to clarify, this is a special meeting. As I described at the last meeting that we had, and I will describe it again, the council has 3 options for meetings. The first is regular meetings. The schedule of regular meetings is adopted at the reorg meeting January 2nd. You can look at the minutes of that meeting and see the resolution that was passed that listed all the meetings for the year. That is the resolution. That contains the list of meetings that Councilmember Sackett and I reviewed in December before the council voted on it on January 2nd and adopted it. The only other 2 ways that the council can meet are by an emergency meeting, for which there are specific requirements under the law, and there are no notice requirements. There hasn't been an emergency meeting in Rockaway Township in the 6 years that I've been an elected official, which leaves then special meetings. Special meetings require 48 hours notice, and it's stated in the statute how that's to be done. This governing body has adhered to both the letter and the spirit of the law with regard to calling special meetings. But those are only the 3 mechanisms that this governing body has to call a meeting. Regular meetings by resolution, which you have to have a meeting in order to have that resolution or update that calendar. Emergency meetings and special meetings. Next on the list is Amber McCormack. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Amber McCormack, 30 Hibernia Road. Just have a couple things tonight. Some questions I have is, okay, you're just starting. That was actually one of the questions, the timing for public comments. In some of the past meetings, we've gone back through the videos because it seems like some people's times are being cut short. The last meeting specifically, I actually went through and watched everybody that was had come up to speak and found that some people were being cut off early. Some people would not have had to be told to go sit down if they had been allowed to start being timed at the time they got to the microphone. So my question is, when does the 5 minutes start? For example, for Katie Platts, when her name was called, first of all, people were still clapping when names are being called, so people can't hear. And I think it's appropriate to at least allow people to clap. I mean, they're not being too crazy. They're just clapping in applause, saying, hey, thank you for your comments. When she was called, it took 28 seconds for her to get up to the mic. She was told I started the timer when her name was first called, even though she didn't hear it. And she was told at 4 minutes and 52 seconds that her time was up. It took her 28 seconds to get up here to talk, and then she was short at 8 seconds. So, and I know you all know Katie Platts. She can pack a lot in 30 seconds. So I think that it's a disservice to the public when we're told we have 5 minutes, and it seems like several people were getting cut off. Stacey Gregg was also cut off, and Mr. Waters was cut off at I think it was right close to the 5 minute mark if you started it from when his name was first called. So my proposal is perhaps get a visible timer so that everybody out here can see when the time starts, and perhaps start the time as the person gets to the microphone and states their name. I just think it's fair and visible, and so nobody has any questions as to how much time they have left. Some of the comments I have on this ordinance change, I went through it line by line and did a track change and to see what all got changed. And my concern is the proposed ordinance literally only has the public defender as someone who shall be licensed to practice law in the state of New Jersey. So I'm curious as to why that line got taken out for the township attorney and is not in there for a special counsel or conflicts counsel or basically anybody at the moment except for the public defender. I would assume that even though it's a given that you would assume an attorney is licensed in the state, I think it should at least be written here since it previously was. And then the other thing I just had a question on, under eligibility for services for those who are applying for help, I noticed, and I'm curious as to why the last sentence it previously stated the municipal attorney may do all things necessary to collect any money due to the township for services rendered by a municipal public defender. Now it states the township attorney may do all the things. So I'm just curious as to what was the change in that, or is it just the terminology change? You just want to put township versus municipal? That was just one of the questions I had. Also for this ordinance, is the attorney who is currently sitting over there going to be the attorney that reviews this ordinance change? Because wouldn't that be a conflict, being that he's basically reviewing his own job in a way? I just think, is that what conflicts counsel is for, or is somebody else looking at that? I'm just curious about that. Another item, minutes. Why aren't these minutes being looked at, posted in a timely manner? I think at this point we are violating the Sunshine Act or Sunshine Law. I was reading that and I actually mentioned this back in, I believe, March or April, I'm not sure which one. They don't have to be approved in order to be posted, but they are supposed to be at least posted to the public within a timely manner so that they can at least review it. And then once they are approved, they can then have, approved on whatever date. As of this moment, there have been no minutes posted since the June 18th meeting. That's 8 meetings. So I'm kind of curious as to why that's not out. Also, out of curiosity, and this may be just because I don't know this, but is there a location online where if somebody wants to look at a changed ordinance or a proposal or something that's been passed, if they want to go back and look at a previous one, is that something that we can look at online, or do we have to come to the municipal building to get a copy of that, just if we want to look at something, say, 10 years ago and compare it to what's current now? I tried to look online, and maybe it's because I don't know where to look, maybe it is, and I just don't know, so I'm curious to know the answer for that. For things online, I just kind of curious, when there's comments, questions, things like of that nature that don't seem to go along with certain people's things, why is it being blocked?
Your 5 minutes has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Flossie Haberly. Please state your name and address for the record.
Flossie Haberly, 26 Timber Trail. I voted for the council in order to reduce expenses and believe you can effectively accomplish the goal. I stand behind you and trust in your leadership. Many who are not here are grateful for your dedication and perseverance. We thank you for representing us as you are trying to do what's needed in making Rockaway Township more affordable and all that we know it can be.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Sharon Prague. Please state your name.
My name is Sharon Prague. I live at 115 Omaha Avenue. Okay, I have a few questions. One of the problems is my mom has lived in this neighborhood for 55 years. When I needed to get a shed, I paid the $50 to make sure that my shed could go where it was, and I got approved. My mother's neighbor decided to take 6 trees of hers down. My mother had to go out. She's 80 years old. The guy has an illegal bulldozer. My mom's 80 years old. This is very upsetting to her and the family. The guy never had a building permit or nothing. He didn't want to spend the $50, and they actually built you guys approved a driveway that is part of my mother's land, but you guys approved it anyway. Maybe because I got so upset, because my mother was upset, I get upset. And I don't feel that Rockaway Township helped her out. So why do we need building permits if it doesn't matter? Another thing is, for the last 3 years, our sewer bills have been going up. They're up over $100. Why don't you help the seniors in this town and lower our taxes like some other states do when you turn a certain age? I don't mind helping people or schools, but I can't almost afford all these extra things that you keep putting in to our town. I've been here for 55 years, and I don't believe that that should have ever happened. The zoning department failed my mother, and she is still upset about it. So if she has a heart attack, I'm blaming you guys.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Charlotte Shear. Forgive me if I can't read the name. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening. My name is Charlotte Shear. I'm at 7311 Polk Drive in Wharton. And I have lived in Rockaway Township since 1974. Currently, I live at 73 Polk Drive, Wharton, which is part of Rockaway Township, a mile north of this building, and pay $11,326.39 in property tax for a two-bedroom apartment, no land. Before, I lived at 74 Lakeshore Drive, a four-bedroom, 2.5-bath home with land, and the tax now for that building is $9,403.46 on this property. In 2011, my tax was $7,627.12. Now it's $11,326.39. It went up $1,020.67 from last year to this year. These are my papers. Everyone in my community has had a big increase, and tax on private homes went down. Okay. Please explain this to me. I understand that you folks, excuse me, say that you have saved the town $1 million, but I didn't see any of this money, and neither did anyone else in my community. Further, plenty of people where I live are on fixed incomes, and it is very difficult to come up with an extra $250 or thereabouts for each quarter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next on the list is Carol Lucas. Please state your name and address for the record.
Carol Lucas, 37 Stony Brook Road. I have a few things to say, but really, I'd like to ask a question. And is there a reason I can't get an answer? Do I not know a procedure? It's a simple question. Actually, I have a couple, but I'll start with one. Can someone explain to me the benefit to the taxpayers of adding the lines that the township attorney cannot be relieved except for cause? I had sent emails about this question and I didn't receive any response, so that's why I'm asking it again. Is my time stopped?
You still have 4 minutes.
Are you going to answer at the end? I would rather have it a little bit interactive, but that seems to be a little more productive. Apparently not. Okay. The next one is I would like someone to explain to me how adding the terminology saying that the township attorney at his sole discretion has the power to retain experts and consultants on any matter. I don't understand how that is beneficial to the taxpayers. I would like an explanation for that as well. Then a few other points just as far as review of the proposed ordinance. Number one, I agree with, I believe it was Amber who said, are we going to have a neutral attorney review this contract? It seems only to be due diligence. I also have an issue with item D. I'm not sure what number that's under, but on special counsel, basically gives township attorney within the limits of available appropriations to hire himself an assistant, special counsel to assist him for any reason that he deems. To me, I think that should require approval of the council. I really see no reason why the council shouldn't be involved in all of these decisions, especially in light of all of the controversy that has come up. Again, I don't know Mr. Inglesino, and I hope you don't take this personally, but it's my tax dollars that are paying these bills. So I think we have a right to have you all involved and not just give one person that opportunity. The next item is under F, under compensation. It says, in addition, under compensation, in addition, disbursements incurred by all of these attorneys shall be included in a monthly itemized bill. Disbursements are defined as out-of-pocket expenses. Do we, I don't do this, so maybe there are standards. Do we have any kind of list of what is actually acceptable as an out-of-pocket expense? I don't really know what kind of out-of-pocket expenses attorneys have. I mean, I'm a designer. If I got to go and buy some, nails to hang up a picture, that's out-of-pocket expense. I don't really know what would qualify as out-of-pocket expenses, and maybe that should be itemized as what is acceptable in our contract as well. Then on the last one, on item J, eligibility for services, under 1, down to the services of public defender. Township attorney may do all things necessary to collect any money due to the township. This seems like it leaves itself open to excessive litigation or legal fees. If it's a small amount of money, would we be better off giving ourselves the option of either putting it out to a collections agency or limiting that so that there's common sense involved, because apparently common sense seems to be lacking. We don't want to authorize someone to go ahead and file motions for thousands of dollars to recoup $500 in attorney fees. I think that's most of my questions. Thank you for your time. I would like some answers.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Kim Kleindienst. We are noting the questions asked, and we'll go through at the close of the public input. Please hold on a moment, and then we'll answer the questions that we're able to. Ms. Kleindienst, please state your name and address for the record.
Kim Kleindienst, 8 Nokomis Avenue. Let me introduce myself to you through the words that 5 of you have written and sent to the public. I am lewd, outrageous, unacceptable, and an extremist radical actor who is trying to disrupt government services. Contrary to the perception of 5 people on this board, I am a registered Republican. Some would say I'm a conservative Christian. I am not a politically motivated person. In fact, I would say I prefer to think that I am one who avoids controversy at any cost. What I am for sure is a mama bear who fights for the rights of children and people I care for. I was a Girl Scout leader for 16 years here in Rockaway, where I worked to put girls around people with good character and find examples of successful women. Mrs. Abrahamson, years ago I used you as an example of a woman in power and leadership roles. You helped me set up my neighborhood watch program. My children knew you through the DARE program in their schools. When I ran for office, I not only voted for you, I endorsed you to my voting children. Explain to me what I'm supposed to say now to my grown children when they watch me attending my first council meeting on the live stream. How do I explain to them when they watch you, as the interim leader of this council, gavel through a fellow council member as he tries to talk? Ram through ordinances without allowing your own council members to ask questions, and instruct your employees to continue to take roll call while a council member is trying to speak. My daughter nailed it. She said, "Wow, she's a bully." She laughed. She laughed when she read the news release from Jeremy that called me a radical extremist for participating in the recall. I apologized to her for suggesting that you were a good role model. I sat here for over a year wondering when the council was going to make a statement or take a stand on bullying in our district. October is National Bullying Prevention Month. What have you done? What have you done in the years since Mallory Grossman killed herself at the hands of the bullies? What have you done since local kids have died of drug overdoses? You have spent over $750,000 in legal fees to protect yourself, but haven't spent a dime protecting our kids. You couldn't even fund the money to fix their basketball courts. You claim to have written an apology to Christ Church to apologize for our community's behavior, my behavior. What about your behavior? Instead of defending your own rights, how about paying attention to other people's rights? Instead of ramming through your own agenda, try defending and protecting someone else's other than your own. Instead of censoring your Facebook pages from negative comments about yourself, how about censoring your own behavior so that legal processes and things can be done? Contrary to what you seem to believe, life in Rockaway is about more than just you and what you want. What is your behavior saying to the children? I can tell you what your behavior has said to my kids. Research your candidates. Don't just vote because you think you know someone. Stand up and defend the rights for those whose rights are being violated. And when you make a mistake and vote for someone who turns out to lie and deceive, recall, recall, recall. You all have children and maybe grandchildren. I'm here to tell you that they're watching. They're learning, and they will repeat your behaviors until someone stands up and says enough is enough. You have had the opportunity to address bullying in Rockaway. You had the opportunity to do something about drugs in Rockaway. What are you doing? Seriously, there is my question, and I want an answer to. What are you doing to take a stand against bullying? What are you going to do to protect the children of Rockaway and teach them about respect and honesty? When are you going to take a stand against drugs and protect our kids against overdoses? What? What are you doing to protect and enrich the kids of this community? Because if you protect our kids, if you do what's best for our kids, we would back you 100%. But you haven't. So I voted you into office, and I will sign recalls, go door to door, join lawsuits, and vote you out of office. If you won't defend the children of Rockaway against bullies, and you choose instead to be one, be prepared to suffer the consequences, because you have poked the wrong mama bear.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Lisa Miller.
Lisa Miller, 455 Mount Hope Road. This is now the third meeting that we have had the threat of, if you don't arrive early enough, you will either have to stand outside, or in tonight's case, you won't be able to participate because of the rain. So I would like to know what is being done to ensure that the October 11th meeting, now there's plenty of time, right? We need 48 hours notice for a special meeting. I don't know what you need to just change a regular meeting, but plenty of time, I think, from now until October 11th, so that it can be attended by all that want to attend without the threat of not getting a seat. So hopefully I'll be able to get that question answered this evening. The flu clinics, will that be posted anywhere? I wasn't able to get all the information though, and that was
It's on the website.
It is on the website already, thank you. And is that free of charge?
Yeah, no, there's...
It depends. Call up the health department.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller and Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly.
Thanks anyway.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Joy Weinreich. Please state your name and address for the record. Ms. Weinreich.
Just a very brief, quick thing. Joy Weinreich, 7 North Brookside Drive. The senior picnic was a great success this year, and as I worked the event, I got to meet and see a lot of people, and I think all had a great time. So I hope to see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Patty Brower. Please state your name and address for the record.
Patty Brower, 165 Perry. I've been in this township for almost 30 years, and I have gone to a couple council meetings prior to this one. This one sucks. I went to the Midnight Oil one, my first meeting. I had people screaming on the council. I had people not able to talk on the council, and you expect these people to give you respect? You don't even respect each other. And a couple of you on the stacked deck really should not even be talking. You have no respect for yourself. You have no respect for the council. We don't have respect for you. We do not trust you. You have your own power games. You use your gavel as it's a power tool, like it's an extension of your arms, and that's the two of you. You are absolutely screaming the midnight oil meeting. Absolutely appalling. And you expect people to listen to you, and when I'm talking to you, sir, you better be looking at me. If I sit back there and look at you when you talk to me, you darn well will be looking at me. And I'm watching you people, as people are standing here, you ought to be ashamed of yourselves. If you have something to read, if you have to pick your nails, whatever you have to do, you do it after these people are talking. If you want respect from this township, you have to give it. So go home, look in your mirrors, and repeat after me. To get respect, you have to give it. And keep repeating it until you start believing it. Then maybe you'll get respect from this township.
Next on the list is Lisa Salberg. Please state your name and address for the record.
Lisa Salberg, 10 Bergen Hill. I'm a little confused because in front of me I have the Administrative Code of Rockaway Township. We have regular meetings, and that's 2-5.2, and we have special meetings, 2-5.3. Special meetings. The mayor and the mayor or the council president may, upon written request of the majority of the members of the council, shall call a special meeting of the council. The request for that call, such special meeting shall specifically be for the purpose of that meeting and no other business. We don't seem to be following our own rules, do we? This is a special meeting. We've had a full agenda. We've had an ordinance, we've had resolutions, we've had a normal meeting. We've had other special meetings that aren't special meetings. They're full meetings. Maybe in the middle of them you realize maybe we should abort this idea of putting through ordinances on a special meeting, and you tabled them, which we never actually got to see those ordinances from the 22nd of August. But that was a special meeting. This is a special meeting. You keep changing terminology and meeting dates and locations, you're causing confusion. This meeting was not noticed properly, and again, is not a legal meeting. It was not put into the paper with enough time for 48 hours notice. On Monday, the meeting was posted on the front page of the website with yesterday's date, internally in the website with today's date. It's chaos. Nobody knows when to come or when to go. We just can't figure it out because you guys can't get your act together. And because you're running illegal meetings, now we have to go in front of a judge. And we'll be there Monday, 9 o'clock, Morris County. And all of my co-plaintiffs will be there too, even those who are traveling from other parts of the state. So we need to get our act together. You've heard over and over and over again the disdain from the public. A couple of you are supporting the behavior, but I'd encourage you to go watch some videotapes and really look at the law to see more. Okay, I'd like to know, number one, I'd like to have the answers to all of the questions that I've asked all year that I've gotten no answers to whatsoever. I'd like to know exactly what changes were made to the January 2nd minutes, because we, the public, didn't get the changes. We just heard it on the agenda. It wasn't made available to us. I'd like to know where the minutes are, because, as it was said earlier, they're really, really late. And I'd still like to know who paid for my letter from Mr. Inglesino. Have a nice night, and I'll see you in court.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Emily Coleman, 18 Lakeshore Drive. I would just like to ask a question, and I just kind of feel like I know the answer. I feel like you guys are making these meetings as unpleasant as possible because you want us to turn away from our local government and then you can carry on and do whatever you want. I find your attitudes to be condescending and patronizing. I still don't understand why John Inglesino is here in the room. I don't understand how we are going to have him as our attorney. He does not talk to us. He does not interact with us. We don't want him here in the room. So if you're trying to chase us out of town, you're not going to have anybody to pay taxes, and you're not going to have anybody to pay John Inglesino with the blank check that you're giving him. Thank you so much.
Next on the list is Stacy Gregg. Please state your name and address for the record.
Are you starting the clock now?
Yes.
Stacy Gregg, 40 Sunrise Road, Wharton, New Jersey. I to read Mr. Dotchison's words because I didn't get it. I got cut off last time, and I didn't get a chance to go through them. So I'd like one of my questions when you do decide to answer questions. I hope one of them will be how many of you on the dais, because you are sitting up there, and it feels like you're looking down on us and not respecting us, but how many of you actually read his words and read them since the last meeting when I put them into, and I'm not even going to call that a meeting because I really feel a lot of this stuff that you're doing is illegal. And it's going to take a lot to convince me that what you're doing is legal. These 10:30 meetings, 10:30 p.m. rushed meetings, canceled meetings, meetings where you know the public is going to have a really hard time, particularly if they have young children, babies, they're nursing moms. They're not going to be able to make it here at 5:30 at rush hour when they're trying to do things. And I really, really feel that Mayor Dotchison had a lot to say, and we didn't get answers to everything because I wasn't allowed to read the rest of it. But I'd like answers to the rest of the statements he made. And there's a lot of defending of yourselves, the five of you. But I feel really bad for the person in the audience who fears for the life of her loved one because of the way she was treated by Rockaway Township. I was in the same position when my father moved into Fox Hills, and because we're bringing up things from 25 years ago, I'm going to bring it up. When my dad moved into Fox Hills, he opened the door and there were studs. There was no electric, there was no water, there was no kitchen cabinets. I want an investigation into that because I believe somebody who's trying to get back into Rockaway Township was either on the council or a mayor, and they rubber stamped all those things through the building, the plumbing, and the construction company. And I really want to thank the lady in the back. I agree with every speaker who got up here. Although there was one who had gratitude for I don't have a lot of gratitude because I really feel stressed out from what's been happening here since January. For the person who thought they removed the chair in the back, it is up here. They did leave Mayor Mike's photo. They didn't try to take it down this time. I don't know why 5 people on this council and a temporary, maybe not mayor is behind someone, as Emily Coleman stated so eloquently. We don't want him here. If you Google his name and you look, Parsippany had signs. No, 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 Inglesino. Inglesino must go. I just copied the signs today to bring them in. The fact that you can't answer simple questions is infuriating and disrespectful. I've gone to many, many council meetings throughout the state of New Jersey, and they have interaction. Somebody gets up, they ask a question, they get an answer. They get respected. And if it goes over 5 minutes, it goes over 5 minutes. They'll ask for the expert people. So answer the people's questions. Stop throwing people out of meetings and threatening them. Tonight you threatened us. You haven't thrown anybody out yet, but you made it a police state by telling the police if they see our mouths move to throw them out for you so you don't have to be the bad guy. That's not how democracy works. I'm surprised I didn't get to use this one tonight. I don't know why I didn't get to use this one, but you didn't have a closed secret deal-making meeting tonight. somebody, when you did it, gave you directions to at least inform us. You know, you had to fight it out among yourselves whether it was going to be 30 minutes or 45, and you give us some sort of clue. It's enough already. Please do the right thing. Step down. Nominate someone from the Republican Party. It's not Democrats coming in. You got to stop this. Those of you on the council that start playing it. That's what the signs say, not red, not blue. I'm a registered Republican, okay? So you don't even know what you're talking about. And the lies in the paper and the notices have got to stop. We don't like chaos. No blank check. This is insane. Is that going to be good? You made a contract with him before you even voted on it. This isn't good. We don't want a blank check where he can hire as many people at his discretion as he wants. Yes, I know you're working on it, but there's something really disingenuous with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And infamous. I don't like the name calling. I haven't called names. I called infamous 5. Infamous is a word, it's descriptive. Famous is famous because a lot of people know you. Infamous is because they know you for something not good. Mr. Inglesino, and now the 6 of you, are known for things that aren't good. I've been going to the same nail person for over 10 years in Rockaway Borough. I have never in my life walked into a place and saw someone
Ms.
that I
Prague,
had
your
to
5
leave.
minutes have expired. Thank you.
Today I did, and so will yours.
The meeting is now closed to the public.
Excuse me. I just want to answer that person with it's free to Rockaway
With regard
Township
to the flu
residents.
clinic, Ms. Seeger.
It's free for Rockaway Township residents. Just looked it up, Bobby did.
The meeting is closed to the public. Thank you.
I thought you were going to answer.
With regard to Mr. Romaine's question about the recycling center potentially being open on Sundays, I believe that is the purview of the administration. Will the administration take a look at that request?
Yes.
Interestingly enough, Council President, when I sat on the council, I proposed that on a number of occasions. It seems to be a budgetary issue, but we'll take a look at it again.
And we will look at both recycling centers? Okay. Mr. Romaine's question about the ordinance introduced, not resolution, and in its comparison to the contract signed for the township attorney, yes, they are compatible. The question about looking for previous ordinances from years ago, my understanding is that if an ordinance was passed in the past 6 or 7 years, about the time when the township started putting things online, then in those cases you can find those resolutions and ordinances in the what's called the archive of the township's website. Prior to that time frame, if you're interested in seeing what ordinances look like prior to that, you would have to come into town hall, and we have what's called the vault, Mr. Kelly?
It is, which contains ordinance books and resolutions that take place per year. So in this case, if Mrs. McCormack has a specific ordinance that she's looking for of a specific time frame, you can then identify that either in an open request, or you can go to the counter and see if the clerk has the availability of time to provide that information or those books for review.
Mrs. Prague had a question or a concern about her mother having paid for the permit for a shed on her property, her neighbor apparently having cut down trees without a permit and building a driveway. Can we refer that to the zoning department for review? The driveway on the neighbor of Ms. Prague?
Can I say something? You got that wrong.
It's a shed, isn't it?
No, the shed is on my house. My mom lives at 52 Oakland Avenue. They did it on 52 Oakland Avenue.
The neighbor's driveway goes onto the property of her mother, which is 52 Oakland Avenue.
50 Oakland Avenue. They have a double lot.
So we will ask zoning to take a look at that.
Well, Mrs. Prague can actually go over and explain it directly to our administration if you wish.
My sister has, and the only thing they said is for giving them a permit Part of the driveway that they put on is on my mom's property.
Okay. We will have zoning take a look at it. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Sharon, if you would, at the end of the meeting, come see me so we can get some information. All right? Thanks.
Sewer bills haven't gone up for the past 3 years. Mr. Sheard is here and did oversee the water utility for quite a while. Any comments from the administration on sewer bills?
The sewer bill currently is, I believe, 299, Lisa? 289, I'm sorry. And that's per year. I can tell you personally, I live in Mount Olive, although I've worked for town for 30 years. I pay over $600 a year.
When was Mr. Sheard, when was the sewer bill last set?
2016, I believe.
Okay. And who sets the sewer bill?
It's based upon the fees for the RVRSA for treatment of our sewage as well as the operations of our sewer collection system.
But when the sewer bill...
By finance department and council.
But ultimately, who decides whether the sewer bill should stay the same, go up, or go down?
The council.
The council does, and they last did that when?
I believe it was 2016. Okay. We can double check that.
All right, thank you. So the answer is 2016 is the last time the sewer bill was adjusted?
We'll double check and confirm that.
Okay. Ms. Shear had a question about her taxes on Polk. If she's here, I would ask her to speak to the tax assessor in administration. The tax assessor will review your property record with you and go through it in detail. I can tell you from my own analysis of the tax records for the entire town, we also had a reassessment that was done. If your property was reassessed and your assessed value of your property increased by more than 7.8%, then your property taxes went up. If your property reassessment went up by 7.8% or less, or stayed the same or went down, we either saw a flat tax bill or a tax decrease. But because every person's property is different, that question for Mrs. Shear needs to be answered individually for her. And the tax assessor is the best capable person to do that with her. And he is available during regular business hours, 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. It's Mr. Burek.
Can you give him the number?
Mr. Kelly, if you know the number and you'd like to read it, please.
It's 973-983-2819. Again, that's 973-983-2819. And he's very informative and very willing to explain everything with ease. So reach out to him. He's a great man.
With regard to the ordinance that was introduced, the question of appointing special counsel, it says here clearly, within the limits of available appropriations. There is no blank check for the township attorney or anyone else to obtain outside assistance for legal matters. The question about out-of-pocket expenses, that language is exactly the same as the previous ordinance. If you look at the existing code, everything from item G and down through the remainder of the ordinance has not changed. The changes were focused at the beginning of that ordinance. And that answers also the question about the public defender and tax collection. My understanding is that the township does use collection services to collect. I don't know if they use it specifically for fees. I don't know if a township attorney wants to comment on that aspect specifically. There's a question or a comment about the basketball courts. Mr. Kelly, you're an expert in what took place with the basketball courts. You'd like to discuss that?
I was invited to the basketball committee on Sunday, and the basketball committee had some questions in relation to the basketball courts themselves. And within the meeting itself, I had provided them with documentation, which was the proposal from Keller Kirkpatrick from September 30th of 2016, addressing the concerns of the basketball courts and how in disarray they were. They were going to do an analysis of what it was going to be for a cost estimate for what they were going to do for improvements to the basketball courts, provide 2 concept plans in the task 2 of the agreement that Keller Patrick has with Rockaway Township. And you're also going to provide a similar layout, which is just basically a survey of just increasing the size of the courts. So it was 2 courts that would potentially go to an 84 in length, 50 feet wide. And then the third court would be a substandard court, which would be smaller than a regulation size. But since Keller Kirkpatrick hasn't completed those components, we haven't moved forward with that. But I was informed, because I had a follow-up meeting on Monday with Brian Coward and Mr. Swanton from Recreation, and there has been somewhat of a provided concept plan that's been redlined and given back to Keller Kirkpatrick with some suggestions or corrections of what Rockaway Township wants to do. So with that being said, I had asked the members there if they can communicate with other programs, being example football, soccer, baseball, and maybe each individual that is the president of their club, we could then meet together and have a general discussion as to what's going on. Because there's
Anybody from Rec there?
I'm sorry?
Anybody from Rec there? Recreation Department? Recreation Committee?
So that they're, what they're going to do is come up with an idea, because there's a speculation that there's a plan that's out there when there's not. We've already confirmed that with our late mayor as well as Mr. Sackett, I think. There hasn't been really any plans that have been approved other than people that have volunteered to do it on the side as a conceptual thing, but there hasn't been anything provided to the town or approved by the town because we're in contract with Keller Kirkpatrick. So moving forward, we're just waiting on some information regarding Keller Kirkpatrick and the concept plans to provide with a cost analysis to be able to budget that money based on the approval for next year's budget. So it was a very productive meeting, and we're just waiting for some more feedback to have an additional meeting with some additional sports programs. So I'm sure we'll keep you up to date, or if you have any other questions, you can either reach out to me or Brian Coward in Recreation, or come to a council meeting and talk on the microphone. Thank you.
With regard to the comments made by 2 residents about the legality of this meeting, this is a special meeting. It is a legally called special meeting in adherence to both the letter and the spirit of the law. And with that, I'll make a motion.
Council President?
Mr. Inglesino.
Thank you. I just want to address 2 points with regard to the ordinance. There'll be a public hearing regarding the ordinance and more discussion about it next time, but in response to a couple of questions. The reason why, first of all, with regard to the ordinance, the recommended changes are for the Office of Municipal Attorney. They're not part of my contract. It's an ordinance that will govern whoever the municipal attorney is. As the council president indicated, whether it's payment to the municipal attorney or to other attorneys or to experts, that is all within the budgetary constraints of the township. So this mantra about a blank check is just plain false. It is wrong. It is misinformation. Secondly, with regard to the hiring of experts, I have been in situations in which it is important and necessary in connection with the litigation for the township to retain an expert. And, in order to do that, you don't necessarily want to telegraph to your adversary by going through a regular contracting process who your expert is or what the terms of that are. So what this does is empower the township attorney in accordance with the Faulkner Act, which means that it would be done in consultation with the mayor, whoever the mayor is, that if it's in the interest of the township, particularly, this is really focused on litigation, there is a need to retain the expert, that the township attorney would have the ability to do that without going through the public contracting purposes so as to maintain a level of confidentiality and not to compromise the township's interests in connection with the litigation. That's the purpose. That's why it's there. It's not for me, it's for the township. In my view, it enhances the protection of the township by giving the municipal attorney that ability to do in accordance with the Faulkner Act, which means it would be done in concurrence with the mayor and the administration. And there would be, of course, consultation with the council after the fact in closed session. That is the purpose for that language in the ordinance.
Thank you. And with regard to the question about closed session, as I stated at the last meeting, this governing body cannot take any action except by a vote in this room, which means that those who have cameras in this room or those who are recording audio, the governing body itself records the audio of this. This governing body can't act in any way, vote on anything, or have anything be done except in this room. So those who have been coming to meetings or watching them on video or getting the audio from the town and listening to the audio, those are the only actions this governing body can take. There's no other mechanism for this governing body to take any other actions outside of this room, this public meeting process. Closed sessions, even to go into closed session, there has to be a public open meeting. And then for, I think, 7 or 9 reasons stated in the statute, the governing body can go into closed session for those explicit reasons, which are always listed on the resolution that we vote on, which is also always on the agenda, for going into closed session. So there's no way for this governing body to act outside of this room, outside of public purview. With regard to the administration, once we set the budget, the administration has a lot of latitude in terms of what it can do. But this governing body is restricted to actions within this council chamber, essentially. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? Second by Abrahamson. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Puzio?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo? Councilmember Smith? Yes. Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson? President Jedinak?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.
It's a new one. Hashtag Mama Bear.